Good morning, everyone. It is written here, in what matrix to strive for world class? Quite a title. I remember from previous time being here that the various speakers all openly showed their roadmap, their journey in supply chain excellence. And even world-class companies with names like GSK, and I'm not condemning them now, but we all have a journey to do. And I want to share with you the journey that Bekaert is making. I will first give you a little bit of an impression, who is this company? And then I will show you the change and transformation that this company is going through, including their financial success. A little bit of my background. I'm a lawyer by background, from Holland. I was 28 years in the chemical industry, 20 for DSM, and 8 years for AkzoNobel, which some years ago took over the remnants from ICI and recently was in the news because PPG tries to do a hostile bid. And since 3 years I work for Bekaert. Now, who is Bekaert? Bekaert is a company that was started in 1880. It is on the Belgium Stock Exchange in the Bel 20. It started to produce barbed wire. So I'll give you a quick explanation. A steel mill makes long products, flat products, bars, rails, but it is about these long products, which popularly called are wire rods. This company is #1 in the world in transforming wire rod into any application you can imagine, and I will come to those applications. We have some 100 factories worldwide in 41 countries, including big joint ventures, also with ArcelorMittal in Brazil, some in Peru and Chile. I will show you how we are spread, but it is the company that is leading worldwide in this type of transformation. It is a company that has, as I said, this global manufacturing platform, some 30,000 employees, 4.5 billion combined sales if we add our sales of joint ventures. And the last few years we did acquisitions that I show you in a while. Okay, so what we do is, you see in the top, the wire rod. Moving from chemistry to metallurgy is a world in itself that I underestimated because I was innocent about this. We have more than 300 different metallurgic specifications that we buy, but then we have an enormous range of diameters that we buy. And that ends up with something like 6,000 different wire rods per year, with some 40,000 machines that are pulling the wire rod into the right direction to its final end product, with some 30,000 different SKUs for sale. And I said to you, 100 factories in 41 countries. So that gives you a little bit of the fun part of supply chain excellence. So a highly diversified company. And we can do anything with those wires. I think we have a slide here. Otherwise, I will tell it to you. So we are #1 in tire cord. Tire cord is the radial steel reinforcement in a radial tire. So mention any name, whether it's Michelin, Pirelli, Goodyear, Continental, we don't care. We have the biggest share of the wallet. As of course, it was patented, and otherwise it's still protected because it's all about safety. If you pull a Porsche with some nice 200 kilometers around the curve, or 120 kilometers, I should say, but it is then 200 centigrade in your tire. That's why steel reinforcement is needed. Otherwise, this sports behavior wouldn't go. But you then also think about tires for airlines, sport racing, whatever. Another big one is flex pipe, which is in the oil and gas industry, which pumps up the oil from the bottom of the sea up to 3,000 meters. So companies like Technip are our customer, and behind that, of course, you see Shell, BP, Petrobras, whatever. But we go also thinner than our hair. Think about hospital needles, diabetes, the spring in it, sawing wire, which cuts sun panels. We talk here 60 micron. Your hair is 80. We produce products now that go to 30 micron. We have some 70% of the champagne cork wire globally. Also for spumante and beer, but if you need to put a cork on its place. Bra wire. Hangers when you go to clean your pants. You cannot imagine what the applications are. There's some 30 kilo of us in every car. the wipers from Bosch. If you think you have an electrical instrument in your car, the roof, or you think I have to open the window, it's all wired. If you think I have to heat my seat, it's all wired. So you don't see us anywhere, but we are everywhere. And if you think this is an old industry, one of our top suppliers is Nippon Steel in Japan. 5,000 patent applications per year. A very solid supplier for us is British Steel, but they are not in the top league. Then you have to talk to the Japanese, or to a POSCO in Korea, or to a Saarstahl in Germany. It's a fascinating world. Now this here is, we have since May 2014 Matthew Taylor as our CEO. This is the first non-Belgian, but also the first CEO really from outside that is non-Belgian. And he came from Land Rovers, the son of a diplomat, lived in 7 countries, 57, more forceful than I am. And I tell you, this man is transforming the company. I was hired a few months later, because Bekaert is such a beautiful company, but what they did by history is they hired Belgian engineers, metallurgic engineers, that studied normally in Leuven, Louvain, or in Ghent. But these people, as entrepreneurs, went to a country, built a factory, became the country manager, and until 5 years ago, you saw a lot of P&L accountability per country. Although the company was on the stock exchange, the secret is that still 38% of this company is in the hands of the family. The Bekaert family and one more family. There's 2 families who are not managing anything anymore. They're only in the supervisory board. But they kept this company like in the shape it is now. And the company is very widely spread. 36% is Latin America from the turnover, 25% is Asian, 25% is European, and the remainder 14% is the USA. But they didn't manage all over the board. So what this CEO has done is, he's making a multinational, true multinational out of this company. When I traveled around in 2014, September to December, I did 95,000 miles in an airplane. They didn't want me to jump in the job immediately. They wanted me to visit their factories in China, in Peru, in Mexico, in Europe, Central Europe, everywhere. And I found a unique thing. Everywhere this company has the same DNA, and the people work in a fantastic manner together. But I also found out they only had MRP systems. And nowhere could I see sales, production, purchase planning. And I said to Matthew, to the CEO, I said, Matthew, but your working capital is, in all honesty, is not what I'm used to in the chemical industry. Then I looked at days payment outstanding versus days sales outstanding. Days sales outstanding were 3 times higher than days payment outstanding. But the company was somewhat protected by the fact that the family had a big arm in it, and the company is funded by bonds and shares. There's no project finance at all, so your obligations are relatively clear. You pay dividend and you pay interest, and for the rest you're a relatively free company, and doing well, relatively well. So we're building since then cement between the stones of the organization. So he has made a slide that says everything we do. We have a vision, which is our field of play, which says really it puts the customer in the heart of the company. So very much outside in looking. What shall we do for the customer instead of what do we produce and how do we get rid of it? I remember days long ago in the years of DSM where we had naphtha crackers and we were producing polyethylene. And you needed full truckloads to ship, but you almost didn't like customers with tailor-made questions because you needed a process flow to keep going. Here, this company thinks about the customer. A goal statement for the heart and a goal statement for the head. Now, you don't see numbers there, but the numbers are 25% revenue growth, 50% profit growth, and 100% return on capital employed improvement. And the company is changing. I will show you in a few minutes. And then long-term strategies and must-win battles. And every year, a must-win battle can change. But you see there, if you can read it, the first one is cut the crap. And that's typically this man. Meetings that shouldn't take place. Too many copy holders on mail. Unnecessary procedures. He said at a certain moment, guys, why should I approve this CAPEX? There's 40 signatures on it. What am I going to add to the table? Stop it. So we changed the CAPEX procedure. But this type of cut the crap, delayering, but also authorizing people to work. I came from a company in Akzo Nobel where every 10,000 euro was approved by the executive committee. Now, that's also a way to cut costs. And in this company, they turn it around. They give you a power of attorney which is unlimited. But they expect that you drive what you do with an enormous responsibility. And that you don't, if we cut cost and travel, we make a travel policy, we give guidelines, but we're not cutting the budgets. We expect behavior from the people, and strange enough, after several months, we saw the result coming, and the cost cutting was not needed, it came by itself. It's a very different way of motivating people. So the spread over the world, it's really a pity that these slides are not sharp, because I can't show you really now, but you can see we are nicely spread over the world. And the latest acquisition we did was our joint venture, where we have 67% with the Bryden Group. Part of it is in England. It was held by a Canadian pension fund. We have the majority and run that group now. And that makes us the biggest in ropes globally. Ropes for mining, ropes for Otis and Schindler as soon as you hit an elevator, ropes for ski lifts. In Australia, they are the safety on highways. It's a fascinating business. Now, if you heard me say a wire rod, 9 of these wire rods become a combination of wire rod, but 9 of these are a rope. And ropes you have in very different formats. So that's another business that we have now with 19 factories in 7 jurisdictions. Fascinating to do, but very spread over the globe. We are in a whole list of industries. So I will mention here that in the top I said already, automotive. We are also a lot in construction. So whereas you are used to mesh that's put into concrete, but the bad effect is that it starts oxidizing and then the concrete starts rotting. What we produce is a product called Dramix. And the lady that runs for me supply chain sits here in the room, but she built those factories. She is from that business. You put like staples that you knit paper together, but the staples are somewhat bigger. And you just let them flow out of a bag in the wet concrete. With this, parts of your London Underground are built. The A1 in the Netherlands, beautiful museum you can shape with special features. But the quality for architecture of this application is so different, because it doesn't have this specific beton rotting, concrete rotting. And it shapes really with the way you want to shape a feature. So a lot of architects are using this. It's for us also a very special market and growing double digit. Then we are, as I said, a lot in energy and utilities. Don't forget agriculture. We have 22 stores in Chile. Whether you are a cow farmer or a wine farmer, you go to such a store and you get anything from us, which either is made by steel, or the wooden poles, or the hammer to hit the nail. But if you want to build the rastering around the greening for the cows, or you want to set up a winery, we have it all for you. So in Latin America, the majority of our business applications is construction, whereas in Europe, it's highly technological. Consumer goods, I've mentioned you a few, but even bookbinding wire, you wouldn't notice this, but all these wires that are in bookbinding, ours. I think I've said enough about the width. Numbers here, but I think what is important to say, in 2014 we had a profit of 161. Last year it was 305. The EBITDA went up from 5 to 8.1%. We normally, because the family was quite withholding and giving too much share price information, twice a year give share price information and profit warnings or profit involvement. But this first quarter, end of the first quarter, we exceeded with more than 20% the turnover. So we were for the first time over $1 billion. And that shows also that this year our profit should be around 300, 312. So with a lot of confidence, our CEO has said this 8.1 should become 10. 1% will come from a little bit of improvement on the oil price, and then our businesses also will gain. And the other one is from the ropes business. But that is really, if you think what the man was hired in May 2014, warming up in 2014, and as of 2015, he has been doing transformation. And I will show you what that transformation is. So it really has made the group special again. One of the actions has been that we were not afraid, and that is what you see below the arrow, we were not afraid to spin off businesses that were not helpful to us, or that were leaking, or didn't make sense anymore. Above the arrow, you see acquisitions. Now, there is this old saying that sometimes a big bang works better than a string of pearls. Sometimes these small acquisitions of 50 or 70 million, they look simple, but they seem to disappear once you acquire them. We did in 2015 a Pirelli acquisition. Before the Chinese bought Pirelli, we bought their 5 tire cord factories. Let's say a turnover of 240 with a profit of 40. We lowered the working capital by 250, believe it or not. So you more or less, end of the year, have done an acquisition without going to the bank or difficult things, and you add 40 to the bottom line. But the other thing is, within 6 months it was in our SAP system. Remarkable enough, this company has one SAP system. I worked at AkzoNobel with 280 different back office systems. But what you see is that they haven't used all features of an SAP. So they work a little bit with APO, they have MRP, and since this year and last year half, we are rolling out SNOP. It was just not there, let alone enterprise planning and more. I will show you what we're building. But an acquisition like Pirelli was very successful because within 6 months we had it under our arms and it really contributed. Because the size and scale is then big enough. If we have 1.5 billion turnover in tire cord, then a 250 million acquisition is sizable. What you then see is, of course, that the Belgium Stock Exchange starts to move. And this is already a picture of a year old. But you saw Bekaert, because when I was hired in September 2014, the share price was 23. And I think if you would look today, it's 45. So it is very much appreciated on the stock exchanges all over the world, what we're doing. Now the share price, when sawing wire was at the peak of its performance, that was 2010-11, when most of us were in a recession, they had a share price of 73. They were flying machines made in Belgium to pull the wire to China. That's where the production of sawing wire is. But that business then crumbled completely, and then Bekaert had to regain its strength. And this is a more recent announcement from ING Bank, where you get an advice that it should get over 50 again. Now, this is the first quarter, so enough. So what is now the engine from inside? In my title, I say, in what matrix to strive for world class. Now, one thing coming from outside to Bekaert is, and I've told it to real Bekaert people several times, I was regularly flabbergasted that wherever I go in the world, or at headquarters in Belgium, they never talk about who is the boss in this company. They don't say, I don't work for you, or do I have the dotted line or the solid line with you. If you put Bekaert people together in a good project, they work. Whereas I have seen businesses in other companies where I worked for that didn't work like this. They were antagonists with each other, hidden agendas, pulling each other's legs, all human behaviors. In this company, if they see reason why to do something, they work together, which is a fantastic thing. Now, what happened? The second day I was hired, Matthew says, Ton, go and find our man who runs manufacturing excellence. I won the manufacturing excellence program. In my DSM years, we sold our NAFTA crackers and we bought Roche Vitamins in Basel. So I was part of that acquisition team and worked for 2 years extensively with the McKinsey. And I mean extensively. That 3 billion vitamins business had a profit left of 70 million francs. And we completely revamped that business. And I mean completely. So with all those tricks and learnings, pitfalls, mistakes we made, I was looking at Bekaert now, who is the right party to do manufacturing excellence with? And after a pitch, an RFP process, we selected McKinsey. And what had Bekaert not done so far? It is not rocket science, but to do it well is the trick. They have, for instance, out of these 100 factories, 22 are tire cord. But they hadn't looked at which machines have the highest yield. Ask the operator why the yield is so high on Tuesday in February. Try to make that the new standard. Raise the bar so you all everywhere get hidden capacity visible. By treating operators like engineers, give them the respect they deserve. Then building playbooks. That is a word that we use if we see a standard operating procedure for whether it's proactive maintenance, whether it's for the homologation, the approval of wire rod, for anything you do across the board now, we have the same playbooks, which makes that you can train people in a different way, manage them in a different way. And I told you that the profit in 2014 was 161. But in a due diligence and a deep dive to look what you can do with all those factories, the project management team made a commitment to the executive committee that with the baseline of the cost for plants of 2014, they were able to improve the cost by 180 million. Can you imagine what the top 30 of a company thinks when the profit is 161 and then a group of people says, I'm going to improve 180? They all said, hey, that must be nuts. What did I forget in my last 10 years of my career? Yeah, they didn't make a multinational yet out of the company. And if you're used to these big programs, you have value tracking tools. Value tracking tools have measures, and measures are in a card. And a card is a standardized way to show a project. 5 stages, stage-gated, deadlines every 4 weeks, program management office on top of it. This is how I lived in Switzerland. And this Bekaert manufacturing excellence is now more than halfway of the 180, ahead of its schedule. But it gave such a confidence to Bekaert that they could renew themselves. The next program that was launched half a year later was Bekaert Commercial Excellence. What you saw, and there's no negative thing meant, but what you saw with a lot of the Bekaert people, they are very honest people. They're not selling in B2C, they're in B2B. They were almost selling added cost plus, instead of margin management techniques, building new tools. So the commercial excellence program was pitched and ended up as well with McKinsey. A new methodology to work on key account management, because we work already for a few decades on key account management with the famous Pirelli, Goodyears and Continentals. But how do you do then the key account management in Asia with other customers? How do you gain market share in China? For your information, we have 11,000 people in China, and I think 1/3 of the market for tire. Both vehicles for us, personal cars as well as trucks. How do you do profit engines on your PDA? In the Dramix business today, and it sounds all so simple. They have an app where it is visible for what sales price they are allowed to sell, but also mechanisms underneath what sales price, the sales price approval is blocked. And if I give my youngest wire rod cost to that business manager, he can change the model. And when I spoke to those salespeople, they think it's sports. They love it. What they now indirectly can see is, on their PDA, is how much profit they make with every customer. I've also been working in DSM where the general manager said, my salespeople are too stupid for this. Their target is within 30 days you increase the price increase that I dictate that you will do, and otherwise no bonus. What the reasoning was for the price change, the sales manager should not understand. That was in the resins business. Resins, which are the backbone for a paint. Yeah, I think when you give monkeys peanuts, you get average monkeys. Huh? But building these tools in commercial excellence was also a feature. So that was that program. Then we had to be very humble. We had a stagnating safety record already for 4 years. Now, how can you be proud to be world-class in manufacturing excellence as at the same time your safety records are stagnating? So we created a program called Bekaert, which is another way of managing the care about your people and putting it at the top of the company targets, discussing it every month, putting it much higher on the agenda. The past was that mostly the plant managers and their people had the safety targets. But coming from two leaders in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, DSM and AXO, I was a little bit surprised that in Bekaert, the top management didn't have the same visible safety targets as the plant managers. And I remember that 35 years old, I was made responsible for iodine business in the Atacama Desert in Chile. And I've done this for 6 years, and the first target I got from the board of DSM was safety. And I said then to my boss, but wait a moment, you want me to quadruple this business, wasn't that the job? Yeah, but if you make a chaos of sales and production planning, the operators in Chile will stumble over their feet because you're a chaotic person. And if then an accident happens, you're to blame. And that's why your first target is safety. Why can I still repeat this to you? I'm 55 now, because it made such a deep impression to me. Once walking around at the production site in Chile, I knew very well why this guy in Holland had said it. Bekaert, another program. Now, of course, you all realize that if you become very good in Bekaert, in taking care of safety, you become very precise. Normally, very precise people do things first time right. And the more you do things first time right, the more efficiency, the more gains you have. People with sloppy offices, sloppy desks, dirty cars, normally I have my second thoughts. Then the next thing that came up is because in all the thing that I did, then Matthew said, can you get the company ready for supply chain excellence? But of course, this was in the heart of the business, in the heart of a lot of business people. So I had to find a few people and a team out of the business that would shape this. Luckily, I have two people with me. They sit here a little bit in the back, Ans Peleers and Pieter Verwijns, and they are both experts in production and supply chain. And out of the ranks of the Bekaert people, I dare to say that Anna's already third generation Bekaert. That's also a strength of this company, that they have an enormous loyalty in the Flemish land for this company. And if these people who come out of the roots of the company transform and put supply chain excellence on the map, then you can get it going. But we went with people really to North America, put the master data right, and then started to build S&OP. Now guess what? I don't put this on my business card, but the third function I'm allowed to run is master data globally. And of course, many people look at you, you must be completely crazy that you accept such a responsibility. Because most people try to make careers by avoiding harmonization of master data. But I see smiles here. We all know that if the master data are not right, you can build what you want, it will not succeed. And it sits in every function that it goes wrong. So we have also a global transformation program now on master data. And where does this lead to? To Fit for Growth. And you see there on the right, the bars and the arrow. I think last time I was here, I showed you two S-curves. But what Matthew Taylor here desperately wants, and it is his passion, and I have even a book with me from Price Waterhouse at the moment that's called Fit for Growth, 2017, written by the former Booz Allen people that are now a strategy end of PwC. If you do big transformations, normally you can do one S-curve. But at a certain moment, when you're on that flattening part of the S-curve, you become off. You feel that you're not as successful anymore as in that other part of the S-curve. But there is still so much to do. So with what mentality, with what spirit, with what quality of people can you make a jump to the second S-curve and then to the third S-curve? Because how often do not these transformation programs fall back on their back after a certain 1 or 2 years of success? So we built a platform that we are having called Fit for Growth. Since our CEO is truly British, he introduced us a word most of us didn't know. The company had already the logo Better Together, but now we are irrepressible. Now, I assume if you are a UK native, you know what irrepressible is. But if you translate this in Dutch, or the Americans, or the Germans, we hardly know what that means. But what Matthew wants us to be is irrepressible, because he said, I studied the history of this company, I've studied your behaviors in the last few years. You are irrepressible, but just make it your daily asset. So he has put it now on his blue slide, and he has put it here on the logo. Now, what is this program that we're now running? And it is the most complex one of the whole transformation, apart from continuing to grow in business. We have looked at 8 mainstream functions here: HR, finance, engineering, commercial back offices, communication, purchasing, IT, supply chain, legal, technology, and they all go through a transformation now. This program we run with Accenture. The efficiency gain that's behind it will be done with a kind of shared services. We have already shared services in China, but we have also partially outsourced accounts payable to India, to Tata. So probably we'll end up in another hybrid, but we are looking really to end-to-end processes now. And in all honesty, I was optimizing purchase to pay, but accounts payable was finance. If you look to an innovation process, then you saw that throughout the company, from the beginning to the end, it didn't have the right stage-gated approach. If you think that there is a real good process for mergers and acquisitions, for M&A, it was not there. Underneath are a few transversals, as we have called it, because they support the whole transformation. And you see that it starts with master data. The number 2 of our IT function was willing to start to work for me, and he does now nothing else than master data management. And then you find out that a company like ours doesn't have a rigid, solid governance for how to manage master data, how to get rid of your dirty history, but then with what type of structure do you grow to a certain standardization and keep the standardization? In Bekaert in history, at a plant level, you had people who were good in optimizing master data. But I have 7 plants in China, 19, for instance, in Europe. Yeah, and if they in Italy have another hobby than in Belgium or in Germany, how can you do this? I have a few people from engineering who now do my OEM and my CAPEX buying, but they have thousands of numbers in their head. And that is why if they look in Business Warehouse, they can make chocolate out of all these article numbers, but they're not harmonized. And that leads to very strange situations. So all of this together has become the Fit for Growth. But most of what we see is not cost cutting. It's added value. And that's the charm of this CEO, that he believes in positivism instead of cutting costs. The cutting cost is a necessity, it will happen. If we go to shared services, let me throw a number in the room, we might improve 20, 30 million cost. But he doesn't want to make dividend out of it. He says, then invest it in better people and invest it in IT. Today we are about supply chain, but I've seen from a Belgian company, Barco, but also from AkzoNobel, a cockpit on top of purchase to pay. It's called Celonis. It sits on SAP HANA, and it shows you real time, every hour of the day if you want, all your process steps from request to order to accounts payable. And an old colleague of mine of Akzo showed me, it is laptop, here Tom, this is us at the moment, bling, oops, I'm only paying 45% of my invoices in time. And he said, don't laugh, because now you think, of course, we're paying willfully late. Believe me, there's at least 30% we pay too early. Because whatever purchasing agrees, whatever they put in records in SAP, the Treasury Department who sends the bank slip to the bank has their own behaviors. And if they think it's funny, they just send it 4 days too early, which is, of course, a big cash drain. It's not needed. So these cockpits, we will discuss them here with you today for supply chain, are, of course, the youngest developments that build on a data lake. You have a fantastic overview of what you want to manage, but it's in more functions. So this is the change we're managing. And what Matthew believes in is the cost efficiency gains and the first time right end-to-end processes will transform our functions in a way that from looking like a diamond, too big in the middle, sorry, I say this wrong, because most of our functions, if we did an analysis with Accenture, they look like a triangle. Heavyweight, too big in the middle, and too small in the top. So you have not enough strategic people, too much middlemen, and too many people who do with their hands what they do since history. If you cut off 2 of the corners of a triangle, you can become a diamond. But then invest this improvement into the future. And then you can add value. So if I look to my purchase function, I can automate further and standardize and outsource purchase to pay. But what's much more fascinating is I do another spend transparency run with the youngest available internet tools with Accenture. And I've said I can find another 1.5% on the non-wire rod spend, which is, if I look at the savings of the non-wire rod, let's assume they are 26 million on average per year, I can add another 12 million. That's added value. Then I'm in the process at the moment that I'm asking all the wire rod suppliers, which is the steel industry, and by the way, we are the single largest buyer in the world in wire rod. Dear mining company, dear steel industry, could you buy the ropes of Bekaert? If I buy 100,000, 200, 300,000 tons of wire rod from you, could you also buy something from me? So by putting the red carpet out for salespeople in our ropes business, I think I can increase their turnover with visible percentages. So this is the way that we want to show that next to efficiency gains, you can add value to the company. And bottom line, the trick should be that functions are not a pain in the neck, but should be business partners for the core business. And that is what this man sees as a vision, which is quite unique, because I've been working previously in companies that they only look at efficiency. So here you see for supply chain the objective. So it says, become a real demand-driven supply chain, able to sense and shape demand by reacting to real-time signals for customers, suppliers, and employees. The ultimate goal is to ensure the best service to responsiveness while also balancing inventory and cost. To 2017, we focus on 2 things, and you'll see it on the KPI dashboard. Having a well-defined organization. I don't know how clear it is in your companies. We see all types of people who call them supply chain. We look at job description in the top executives, and various people say that they have that responsibility. But if you then really look, there's a lot to be clarified, optimized, and standardized. That's what we are doing at the moment. And to prove we're not talking hot air, we have already accepted for this year a few tough financial targets to optimize stock levels, just to show that we're with 2 feet on the ground. And whilst doing so, we're also rolling out S&OP globally. We went with some 25 people around the world to Barcelona to a supply chain excellence center that Accenture has there. And it's fascinating what happens if you're 2 days there. You're not at the heart, you're not going on the Ramblas, you're not sitting there for fun. You sleep in a hotel and you're next to the technology center. A lot of young people, as you can imagine, but you sit in a fully digital environment. And the Accenture people, they show you state-of-the-art developments of Maersk, of Airbus, of Unilever. I don't care what, but they show you the youngest developments that are possible in supply chain excellence, or procurement, or production, and they tease you, of course, to get out of your comfort zone and to write your own destiny. That's what we did here. So ultimately, this led for us to why we want to do supply chain excellence. And in service, it says reduce the lead times, resulting in increased sales. one thing I can share with you, in this Bekaert manufacturing systems, this program to optimize this 180 million, 40 out of the 180 were OEE. So you free up capacity, but the capacity has to be sold. If you don't have supply chain excellence well in place, there's not much more to sell. In the United States, in Shelbyville, where we then did a pilot, there they indeed could sell the empty capacity. We had also improved wire rod prices, but for the first time in several years, they started to make profit again. Because if I would ask a year ago, the guy is now my purchase director, Terry, how much sales orders do you have from your customers? Oh, 2 weeks. And then I would say to a purchase lady, that doesn't work anymore for us, Nancy, how much purchase orders do you send out to your suppliers? Oh, 2 weeks. I said, guys, you're skiing in the fog. You have no process at all. No wonder that nothing works here. This is just, I do my best and it's Friday. But changing this structurally, I'm very naked, and I see you all laughing because this sits in every company. But everybody is hiding this a little bit. But opening this up for service is the change. Cost. Of course, we want to look at the lowest cost to serve, the lowest cost to supply, and an optimized extended supply chain. I was used to this in the chemical industry, but today, of 3 million tons of wire rod, 65% I do with 12 suppliers, with 20 suppliers I have 92%. And with those suppliers we made multi-year agreements. And in these agreements it's not only pricing and rebates and all this purchase stuff, there is supply chain integration. Really to do a rolling forecast, 3 months ahead, 1 month's binding. It's shaping our company, but it is also shaping, take ArcelorMittal in Europe. We use 7 steel mills of these people. And Mittal was just buying steel mills. Don't think that that's a company. If I sign a contract with ArcelorMittal Europe, I have 7 CEOs who signed their independent contract signature with me. I made it one agreement with one wording, but they were not used to this. They had everything different. They didn't even know from each other their own best practices. So by really integrating supply chain with your key suppliers, and then extend it to your key customers, that is my holy grail. And in AkzoNobel I could do this because what is paint? It's mixing and steering raw materials. This is called formulation technology. But we had 14,000 raw materials and 100,000 SKUs in paint. But you needed to collaborate deeply with a BASF or a Dow. You had hundreds of millions of purchase with these people. And BASF in Ludwigshafen has 9,000 PhDs. They spent 1.3 billion on R&D. It would be strange if you wouldn't tap into their knowledge. But you need extended change with each other. And of course we manage cash. And it is nice to see that currently our new CFO, a lady, Spanish, coming from PPG, she's really saying, Ton, can you show me, this meeting is in a few weeks, how you're measuring and monitoring and steering now stock levels? Which in the last 2 years, nobody was asking me. Because the company was not used to steer it to the last 100,000. So if you look at this slide, then you see the house of supply chain for us. And this we hammered together, being in Barcelona. I had the experts of the whole of Bekaert with me, and I was more or less the layman. But I said, guys, we're not leaving here before we have this house together. There are so many varieties of the truth and so many ways to get to Rome, but I don't want us to talk too long about what is all possible. Let us now put together the building blocks of supply chain and what we have to do. And funny enough, everybody laughs because purchasing now in the left here becomes a very small block, although it's an important function in the company. But really we have here, I think for you all clear, the material planning, the detailed scanning, scheduling and planning, transport planning, master scheduling, then you see sales and operations planning that we're now building. And on top of it will be integrated business planning. So my 2 colleagues are here to speak with certain providers here, because we are now building the IT infrastructure house based on SAP, SNOP, to move up to integrated business planning and to build these cockpits on top of it. Because this visibility we never had. This is a journey, of course, of this year and the next 2 years at least, but we have the momentum. By showing that we monitor stocks and we bring them down at the right moments in time for the whole company. I didn't say that we bring them down overall. I allow also businesses to build more stock, and here it's a little bit less. It's all balancing. But being under control is what we show. And with this, we get a lot of momentum. What we also did very honestly, and that is, I think, where Accenture helped us, but then for all functions. We have the tendency to think we are good, because who gets to the job for an average name on his door? You want to be exceeding or outstanding. But if you sit too much in your own environment, you can become a little bit self-confident. So what we did is, we did a benchmark for every function. And for instance, for purchasing and wire rod buying, Accenture said, and they have 300,000 people, of which 90,000 are in purchasing. I'm not selling Accenture, but to give you a little bit, when they say something, it's not bullshit. But they said in wire rod, your first quartile. We even don't know how you do this. But the rest of your spend, your fourth quartile. In the beginning, I was a little bit, I can still say I'm only 2 years with Bekaert, so who cares? But if you look better to what they do with their shared service centers, or how they do the packaging spend or transport spend, then you must admit that in my company the spend is too small to be that professional as some of their experts. Then you go to a shared service center in Prague, and you speak with purchasers who work for 5 or 6 companies. You think, God damn it, they know everything. If you think in carton boxes, they know the cost price of the pulp, of the water, of the electricity. They know the vendors, they have the strategies ready, because if you change the name of the supplier, of the customer, then you have a new carton box strategy in Europe. They do this, they do nothing else, and they do 60 times more than your own person. So yeah, they are better. And you do this for every function. So here was the supply chain function. And yeah, you cannot read this, but it goes from lagging to basic to advanced to leading and really top class. We honestly said, as Bekaert, we are currently at basic, and here and there we have some advanced businesses, and that's it. If a group sits together, door closed, they are willing to accept this, and then you have to sell this in a smart manner to the business, so that they also start to accept, even if they're called SVP, EVP, and they have these top positions, that they were just average or weak in the whole supply chain excellence. And then you get honest discussions. Yeah, in all honesty, we much more look at turnover or profit levels than that we look at managing the supply chain really top class. Then the next thing is that I said, but where are these people then that are top class? Did we not forget to foster this function? You can put a fantastic sales manager, key account manager, marketeer into purchasing, and he will be good. But where do we have these excellent supply chain directors and managers? And you have to build this function, not by hiring 20 people from the outside, then you miss the culture, but by developing from within excellent production people, people that have been building factories, people that have a general skill set, people that, like in China, I have a lady that does the transport for more than 1 billion sales. But that woman is now a supply chain woman, because she has the capabilities and the DNA for it. But this outside in, recognizing where you have to start, makes also clear where you are on a certain S-curve. And it gives clarity. But everything we do is put in projects, because I have to finish. It's stage-gated. It has process. Every 4 weeks, we have a program office. We have a SharePoint where all the actions are in. And like we manage purchasing and manufacturing excellence, commercial excellence, all these programs go through the same stage-gated process with the same conventions to save cost, with the same ways of measuring. And when my two leading people manage that PMO, I'm sitting in that meeting. I hear 5 hours in a row what they do, where we have to correct, not correct, where people get flowers, where people need a little bit of help in the head. So we also analyzed how are these functions positioned if you think about the matrix. And purchasing was seen as a very solid one. Integrated in the matrix, shared targets, process ownership. And this is exactly how we did supply chain excellence. I have a core team company-wide, but the supply chain managers working for the business have a dotted line to me. I don't need everyone to be corporate. The fact that they stay working for business managers means they can hold their hand and be close to them, but they live our processes and our excellence. So the same thing, we have shared targets and we own the processes. Now we'll move, this is all production planning. Like in purchasing, we have a very clear dashboard where we said we have financial targets left at the top, a lot of organization targets this year, and on the biggest part of the slide, it's all S&OP rollout. And they can stick to us. This is in my personal targets, short-term incentive, long-term incentives, as well as in my team. And with this transparency, I put myself every 4 weeks on the grill of the executive committee. Not that they grill me, but it is fully transparent what we do. We're not bluffing, we're just straight shooters. I hope I've given you a little bit of a glance of the transformation in Bekaert, that it pays off, but also the fun and the passion that it is worthwhile to do it. Thank you.